Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman in our downtown studios in Lansing, and we're going to spend a little time with Executive Director of MICHauto and Vice President of Automotive and Mobility Initiatives of the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce, our good friend, Glenn Stevens. Glenn, it's good to have you on. Always is. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Chris. It's nice to be on. I appreciate your team having me on today. So I'm doing fine.
You are a valuable part of what's going on in the state of Michigan, obviously being in the middle of mobility. It's a little ironic with COVID-19. If we've experienced anything physically, it's immobility because we've been stuck in this sort of circumstance. But you know, Glenn, not too long ago, the State of Automobility Report came out. Tell me a little bit about that and explain that to folks. And then we want to ask you what came out of that that's really pertinent.
Sure. What we did is we about 3 years ago, we worked with public sector consultants. You know them very well out of Lansing.
Yep.
And we defined what the economic contribution of the automotive industry was to the state of Michigan, because no one had that number encapsulated. And we wanted to be able to say, this is what it means. And that number was $225 billion a couple of years ago when we looked at it. But as you know, the industry is transforming. And when you look at the word mobility, we wanted to define what the mobility industry means to Michigan. So we actually brought a bunch of different stakeholders together and we defined what we thought mobility was to Michigan. And so this could be everything from drones to cars to rail, how people and goods and services are moving. So we defined that at the end of last year and going into this year with public sector consultants and our partners at the MEDC. And we wanted to do that to put, a pin in that number, but also to frame what the opportunity is for the state moving forward.
It's kind of interesting, Glenn, because it's right about that time we stopped using the term automobile industry and started using the term mobility industry. And it as you say, it relates to how we're going to get around in the future. And obviously how Michigan can best posture to be and remain a leader in that circumstance. Where are we in that circumstance? Are we still in a leadership role?
We're in a leadership role, but make no mistake about it, there isn't a state or a region or a country for that matter in the developed world that doesn't want to lead in this space either. And the reason for that is very simple. I'll give you two numbers. The global auto industry is seen as a $3 trillion industry. But when you look out into the future, personal mobility in a shared use economy, and that's when you roll up automation, electrification, all these things together, that's a $6-8 trillion industry out 20 years from now. So we have to seize that economic opportunity. Our mobility industry today is a $330 billion economic contribution. That's what we found with the study.
Wow, that's a few bucks. That'll get your attention when you're looking at economic prosperity. So let's talk a little bit about what came out of this, and maybe let's talk about COVID-19 and the effect that had on some things.
Yeah, so if you look at the industry, it did something last year, unfortunately, that it had never done. It stopped on a dime. The industry in our 120 years in Michigan had never come to a halt. Even during World War II, it pivoted to make equipment for the arsenal of democracy. It never stopped. So together it mobilized to do things like PPE and ventilators, and it has reemerged as a very strong industry. It has a lot of supply chain issues right now. So, it's been a difficult year, but we're optimistic about where it's going. But the key with the study is to show that not only is it important to our economy now, but without our automotive and our mobility industry moving forward, we just won't have the economic growth that we can have with the transformation of this industry.
Yeah, Glenn, it's kind of interesting, as we said, how this thing COVID-19 has made us sit still. But when you look at the automotive sector of mobility, one of the things that's hurt them so much and still hurting the manufacturers, the availability of computer chips.
Yeah.
Is there anything we're doing in that space to make sure we're not dependent on foreign countries for that supply?
There is a lot that's being done. It's a perfect storm of supply and demand with the rise of consumer product demand, everything from computers to PlayStations, along with automotive and other industries. Chips are everywhere, as you know. The Biden administration is taking on some supply chain tasks. We're looking at it here with our partners in Michigan. But this is not only an issue of supply, it's a national security issue moving forward too.
No, it absolutely is. You're absolutely right. Glenn, as always, your fountain of information. I wish we had 2 hours, but maybe over the next 6 months, we can get you on for 2 hours in total. Glenn Stevens, thanks so much for joining us. Glenn, of course, the Executive Director of MICHauto and Vice President of Automotive and Mobility Initiatives at the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce. Glenn, Godspeed, buddy. You're doing important work. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks for being with us on the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman. Stick around. There's a lot ahead.